Looking at the current world political chessboard, perhaps the relationship between Beijing and Moscow is the most typical example of the so-called close-knit friendship, exercising together, sharing technology and talent. Resources, cooperate to break the dominance of the US dollar, negotiate to build a common base on the moon, even moving towards building a new world order despite decades-long conflicts. Today Russia needs a stable, prosperous China and China needs a strong and successful Russia, but like many a famous politician once said that there are no permanent allies or permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Even though they are comprehensive strategic partners, Xi Jinping does not want Putin. 1 in Ukraine. If you wonder why, then don't take your eyes off the screen, because all will be revealed in today's video. Since the time of the Soviet Union, there have been border disputes between Moscow and Beijing that at times threatened to cause nuclear war. For example, the border conflicts of 1969, although everything seems to have been peacefully arranged by the 2005 Border Delimitation Treaty, tensions still remain. On February 14, 2023, the Chinese Ministry of Natural Resources issued regulations new map content, which requires the addition of Chinese names to 8 cities including Vladivostok in the Chinese region, called Outer Manchuria or Outer Dongbei, currently in the Far East region of Russia. According to with this new regulation of the Chinese government, the city of Vladivostok will be called by its old Qing dynasty name, Cucumberui. This can be seen as a retaliation against the university's post commemorating the 160th anniversary of the founding of Vladivostok. Russian embassy on Weibo, which, according to mainland media, evokes painful memories of the millennium, and at the same time raises a wave of indignation among nationalists in this country. Maybe you already know. Outer Manchuria, sometimes called Russian Manchuria, is a region in Northeast Asia, now part of the Russian Far East. But historically it was part of Manchuria until the mid-19th century. In 1689, after a series of conflicts between the Russian Empire and the Qing Empire, the Treaty of Nerchinsk was signed. The Russians declared their renunciation. Land from the northeast of Heilongjiang to the Stanovoi Mountains, thereby consolidating the Qing dynasty's sovereignty over the area known today as Outer Manchuria. However, after being defeated in the Second Opium War, the Qing dynasty had to cede control to the Russian Empire under the Treaty of Agun in 1858 and the Treaty of Peking in 1860. As a result, China lost the area. What is now known as Outer Manchuria has an area of over 1 million square kilometers, as well American Samoa access to the Sea of Japan. In 2005, the two countries signed a border delimitation treaty, which once again recognized the border according to the 19th century treaties. Up to now, no matter how angry Beijing is, it is still complying with what it said. They agreed with Russia. However, the defeat of the country's army in Ukraine could create an unfavorable opportunity for China to reaffirm its territorial claims to Outer Manchuria, at the same time, more confident and determined to restore the old border according to Nerchinsk in 1689, especially in case the Russian army is completely defeated. It must be said that reclaiming this land, even just a small part of it, would be meaningful and bring great benefits to Beijing. Assuming the case of China recovering a land in the south of Outer Manchuria, this also means that their border will reach the Sea of Japan. In terms of strategic geography, this will help the mainland increase its chances of breaking through the golden ring called the Second Island Chain. For those of you who don't know, the First Island Chain is the first major island chain in the Pacific from the coast of the East Asian mainland. It extends from the Kamchatka Peninsula in the northeast to the Malay Peninsula in the southwest, mainly including the Kuril Islands, the Japanese archipelago, the Taiwan Ryukyu Islands, the northern Philippines and Borneo Island. In April 2014, the United States Army Military Research Institute assessed that the first mine chain was the most effective blockade belt against China. From that position, the United States could not only prevent the military navy from solving the problem, launch the people into the Western Pacific, but also predict from the beginning the enemy's moves in the region, or where they will try to attack to break the siege. Besides, the United States and other countries located on the first chain, there can be cooperation for freedom of navigation in the region and especially the presence of the U.S. Navy. By June 2019, the U.S. Naval Research Institute called for the establishment and maintenance of the blockade corridor is based on the first peach in case the U.S. and China go to war. Not only that, the first island also created many natural blocking positions that allowed the United States and its allies to cut off China's shipping activities. For example, ports such as the Straits of Malacca, Luzon, and Miyako. About 60% of the mainland's imported energy passes through these routes, so suppose if a conflict breaks out, in Taiwan for example, the siege belt of the US and its allies can easily strangle and destroy the economy of a country of billions of people. Thus, taking control of Outer Manchuria would give Beijing an alternative transportation route to the north. In addition, this territory also possesses abundant resources with large reserves of hydrocarbon products, something that China is extremely hungry for in the context of this country's energy security being threatened, and currently they is the world's largest importer of crude oil. Along with that, Outer Manchuria also has a lot of clean water, a resource that directly affects the survival of 1.45 billion people on the mainland. This especially true given the dire state of China's water resources, with 60% of groundwater being of poor or very poor quality and 15.5% of which is so polluted that it is unusable. Not to mention the drought that is plaguing some of China's major rivers. For example, the Yangtze, which is the source of water for 400 million people, is gradually reducing the remaining amount of clean water. From 2018 to 2022, the water flow on the main stream of the Yangtze River has dropped 50% lower than the current level. On average over the past 5 years and in August 2022, this river has never had so little water. Since 1865, at that time, Yangtze reservoirs had to release 980 million cubic meters of water downstream to help the river. Coping with the worst drought in China's history seemed to make things even worse. Although supply decreased, demand still increased without stopping. It is estimated that by 2023, the demand for clean water of mainland people will increase. Exceeded 800 billion cubic meters. This forces Beijing to reclaim the outer Manchurian continent, and to do so, China needs to converge a number of factors, in which Russia's comprehensive loss in the Ukraine battlefield plays a prerequisite role. Not only is Outer Manchuria a territory that the mainland has a historical basis to claim and declare sovereignty over, Beijing can also take the opportunity to look at lands that are even more valuable far to the south. North. Because if you take a bite, why not swallow the whole thing? Outer Manchuria is just a part of the Russian Far East. An area that is sparsely populated with only 1.1 people per square kilometer, but possesses many valuable natural resources. In 2019, Russia officially inaugurated the gas pipeline named Long Siberian Energy, 8,111 kilometers with 3,000 kilometers located in the Birch territory. This pipeline has a transmission capacity of 61 billion cubic meters of gas per year, of which 38 billion cubic meters is for export. Will be responsible for transporting gas from East Siberia to Northeast China. Its fuel supply is 2 gas fields for Yanda and Kavikta with quality of 1.2000 billion and 2.7000 billion cubic meters respectively. Yanda gas field development was launched in 2015 with an expected exploitation output of 25 billion cubic meters of gas per year. Meanwhile, the Kavikta gas field will begin exploitation after 2022 with an expected average output of 25 billion cubic meters of gas per year. For China, this is truly a delicious piece of cake that, if swallowed, will partly solve the energy security problem. That is also the reason why Beijing does not hesitate to invest more money in the Russian Far East than the Russian government. In September 2022, China's representative at the plenary session of the Western Economic Forum, the East has stated that it wants to become the largest investor on the Northern Sea route and will join Russia in building 13 ports along this route with a total expected cost of $28 billion US. Previously, the mainland also has spent up to $14.7 billion on agricultural development projects in the Russian Far East. In addition, Beijing also actively sends its citizens to this area by legal or illegal means. Some demographers predict that at this rate of migration, in the next 20 to 30 years, the number of Han Chinese in the Far East will exceed the number of ethnic groups in Russia, and it is inevitable that invasion will occur in the Far East. This peace has led to tensions between indigenous people and immigrants. In 2019, Siberian authorities forced a temporary halt to the construction of a controversial Chinese bottling plant on Lake Baikal, the largest freshwater lake and contains about 22% of the world's unfrozen surface fresh water. This is due to public outcry and pressure from Gremlin Electricity when the plan to close the 190 million liters of water per year from this factory can cause the lake to dry out and be polluted. Besides, the fact that tourists from the mainland often call Baikal by the name recorded in ancient Chinese as Bihai makes it unsightly. Few local residents developed a grudge. Not only is Russia's eastern resources a perfect gateway that can help China pave the way to the Arctic, Beijing has long made no secret of its ambitions for the world's northernmost region by conducting expeditions. And build world-class research facilities. The reason is, first, the severe weather phenomena and natural disasters that have occurred frequently in China in recent years are closely related to the phenomenon warming and ice melting in the Arctic. Second, China needs more diverse and safer energy and food supplies to ensure domestic energy and food security. Third, the maritime route opened in the Arctic has strategic significance to help reduce transportation time and distance along with low costs and increase efficiency, while also bringing great opportunities for investors. China expands business activities. Fourth, in the eyes of leaders in the Zhongnanhai, the Arctic is an important test to help China explore its scientific and technological strength as well as its military, thereby rising to become a worthy opponent of superpowers. U.S. power. Since 2003, the Chinese government has invested about $90 billion in projects mainly focusing on the energy and mineral sectors in the Arctic. By 2018, Beijing announced its strategy Arctic, which outlines plans to develop the Polar Silk Road and create the title of Near Arctic Country. Investments through state institutions and other companies with close ties to the government. China for nearly 2 decades has included a 12% stake in a $1.4 billion uranium project in Greenland, a 60% market share in Iceland's 2 largest oil and gas fields, and a Diogen plant. Biology in Finland and a 20% stake in the super project on the Yamai Peninsula of Novatek Natural Gas Group in Russia. All for the sole purpose of helping China gain a stronger foothold in its declaration. Its father as a stakeholder in the Arctic. In addition, the mainland also sought to invest in gold mines in Canada, but this intention was blocked by OTAN due to security concerns. Through the recent information, it is not difficult to see how the annexation of the entire Russian Far East would bring great benefits to China in terms of resources and geopolitical power. But that is not the case. The only fat piece of meat that Beijing can take once its comprehensive force partner stumbles in Ukraine. Currently, Central Asia is home to the countries of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. In the past they were part of the Soviet Union, and although the older brother of the socialist bloc passed away in 1991, however, Moscow has never stopped intervening to assert its position as a leading power in the region. This is even easier when considered in the context of Central Asian countries being economically isolated from the region. Each other, and they had to rely heavily on remittances from Russia before the country launched war with Ukraine. However, in recent times, China is gradually expanding its influence into Russian territory because it is a strategic location between East Asia and Europe. Therefore, it has a great influence on success or failure of the Belt and Road Initiative. Maybe you know that the Belt and Road Initiative, also known in China, is a strategic global infrastructure development project adopted by the Beijing government in 2013 to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations. This is considered the focus of Chinese President Xi Jinping's foreign policy as well as a central component of the major country's diplomatic strategy, which calls on China to assume a leadership role in global affairs, in line with the country's growing strength and position. Over the past 10 years, it is estimated that China has invested a total of about $1,000 billion in the region. Belt and Road, and it is expected that the number will reach $8,000 billion when everything is completed. In which, in 2018 alone, they signed contracts worth a total of $309 billion in Central Asia, and because they want to reach Pakistan, a card to confront India and move into the Indian Ocean. This is completely consistent with the strategy of reaching out to the ocean because, as mentioned in some previous videos, about 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, so a country that wants to become a superpower must gain great dominance. Up to now it seems that Xi Jinping's efforts have achieved significant success, as all 5 Central Asian countries have signed a memorandum of understanding related to Belt and Road Initiative. At the same time, except Turkmenistan, the remaining 4 countries are members of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. This is a multilateral development bank and international financial organization aimed at joint economic and social improvement in Asia, established at the initiative of the Chinese government and headquartered in Beijing, in addition to trying to coax Central Asia out of isolation and bring their entry into the Belt and Road. Is also part of Zhongnanhai's geostrategic competition with the United States. In the future, what Beijing's leaders wish for is a world where much people move across the Eurasian continent by infrastructure projects such as roads built through belts and roads, as well as reduce the number of people flying to the US via the Atlantic Ocean, through which they will be closer, rather than the purpose of reorienting the world's financial and commercial center. Not only that, another important reason why China actively competes for influence in Central Asia is because, like the North Pole or Far East, Eastern Russia, which possesses rich mineral resources. For example, Kazakhstan is estimated to hold reserves of 30 billion barrels of oil, equivalent to 4.3 million tons of oil, nearly 3 times the current number, in the East Sea. Meanwhile, Turkmenistan owns the world's 6th largest gas resource with 7.5 million cubic meters and is China's 2nd largest natural gas supplier after Australia. However, due to the relations with Australians are increasingly worsening due to Western influence as well as expensive and risky sea transport. China will be keen to strengthen its relationship with Turkmenistan to easily access the country's natural gas reserves. The third maritime route opened in the Arctic has strategic significance to help reduce time and transportation distance along with low costs and increased efficiency. At the same time, it brings great opportunities for Chinese investors to expand their business activities, and China's regular presence in the Central Asian energy market will also give them an additional advantage in negotiations with the European Union, which has long sought to strengthen relations with countries in the region, to find a way to escape dependence on Russia's gas footprint. Besides Central Asian oil and natural gas, there are also reserves large amounts of gold and silver, with one of the world's largest silver mines and, most importantly, rare earths, elements that serve as the backbone of high-tech industry from consumer devices such as mobile phones and computers, cars, magnetic resonance imaging machines, X-ray machines to military equipment such as nuclear submarines, destroyers, fighter aircraft, navigation missile systems, sonar, and radar, all both require the use of rare earth for manufacturing. According to research by the World Bank and many other organizations, the demand for rare earths will increase from 2 to 8 times in the coming decades. China currently controls 50 to 60% of the world's mining supply and about 90% of the intermediate processing stage of rare earths. However, domestic demand in China far exceeds estimated supply. By March 2022, source of supply to help the mainland meet growing demand. However, although there are many rare earth resources that the whole world craves, Their exploitation in Central Asian countries is relatively underdeveloped and they still have to rely heavily on the energy sector. So the more investment and rare earth exploitation in the name of diversifying the Central Asian economy, the greater the sympathy that countries in the region will have for China and the stronger Beijing's voice will be here. For Russians, this is not really good news because economically, China clearly has more to offer and increases Moscow's influence on media partners. In Central Asia declined significantly. This was true when they suffered Western sanctions due to launching an invasion of Ukraine. And it is even more true at the present time when Russia has been somewhat weakened after nearly 3 years. Year of war. Just like in the Far East, China has poured more money into the region than Russia and plans to invest even more, and the biggest reason the Kremlin can tolerate Beijing's activities in Central Asia is because they are more interested in security issues than economics. As evidenced by the fact that after the Taliban regained power in 2021, Russia and China initiated a close bilateral dialogue to monitor the situation and proceed joint counter-terrorism exercises with the number one priority goal being to prevent the Taliban from reaching the Afghan border. However, China is gradually making its intentions clear by increasing its security and military activities in Central Asia. In October 2021, China took full control of a military base near the border between Tajikistan and Afghanistan. It is worth noting that this base is not managed by the Chinese People's Liberation Army but by the People's Armed Police Force. This is also the unit responsible for internal security. Ministry in Xinjiang, where according to some Western governments such as the United States and Britain, China is committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslim minority. Meanwhile, officials in Tajikistan claim that China will build another base worth $10 million. The purpose of these actions is to protect Beijing's interests in Xinjiang against the threat of Islamic terrorism and separatism. With the economy becoming increasingly dependent on China in the future, the mainland's military presence in Central Asia will grow, especially in the event that Russia, the traditional guarantor of security in the region, is defeated in Ukraine. There is also another factor that it is necessary to consider: the comprehensive military partnership between Russia and China in the context of the war in Ukraine showing no signs of ending. That is, China's support for Russia seems to carry the intention of making Moscow increasingly dependent on Beijing. Currently, China has become the world's largest importer of Russian energy, and this is especially important for the Birch mission to compensate at least part of the damage caused by sanctions and isolation from the West. But this is not altruism on the part of the Chinese. Instead, the Chinese are using the yuan in most purchases. As a result, total Russian exports are made in the yuan increased by 0.5% by February 2022 to 14% by October 2023, thereby greatly benefiting Beijing through strengthening the yuan. This capital has not been very pleasant for Moscow and has especially become a painful problem when China's energy imports from Russia are gradually decreasing, leaving in the country's reserves a large amount of nuclear fuel. The giant yuan is being restricted from use in the international market. This fact makes it impossible for Moscow to make many international purchases because first, they are isolated by sanctions from the West, second, they have too many yuan that need to be pushed away, and guess who doesn't hesitate to accept the yuan? That's right, no one else but China, and this has made Russia rely too much on the mainland. If Beijing decides to take a step back by devaluing the yuan like they did before during the war, trade with the United States, Russia's foreign currency reserves will gradually decrease. If trade transactions are interrupted, Russia's economy will plummet and Moscow can hardly do anything to save it. Besides, the way China aids Russia also seems to be part of Xi Jinping's entire intention to prolong the war in Ukraine. Specifically, the non-lethal equipment and support that Beijing is providing to Moscow, such as civilian UAVs and satellite images, have so far contributed to helping the Russian military confront a defenseless Ukraine, backed by the whole West. However, it is clear that they are not capable. President Vladimir Putin at the Moscow summit. At the meeting, she did not commit to increasing military aid to Russia, while about a month before, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced a 12-point peace plan aimed at represents Beijing's stance on the Ukraine issue. Accordingly, Point 10 ends unilateral sanctions in favor of Moscow and is not difficult to implement because both Russia and China hold permanent seats on the UN Security Council. United Nations. And if you do not know, based on Article 27 of the United Nations Constitution, the resolution of the Security Council, if it wants to be adopted, there must be at least 9 members, including all members. Permanently vote for yes, which means that if only one country permanently vetoes, the resolution will disappear. However, except for the 10th point just mentioned, the remaining 11 points of the peace plan are quite general and vague. Ambiguous in favor of China. For example, the first point on respect for the sovereignty of all states states that the independent sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries must be effectively protected and all the parties should work together to maintain basic norms and regulate international relations. However, the plan does not mention anything about Russia's annexation of territories in eastern and southern Ukraine. China has merit. Receive these new territories or not? No one knows, perhaps even the Kremlin boss. Instead, Beijing encourages more active dialogue to end the war, maintain supply chains, and ensure nuclear power plants are safe and respectful. The agreement signed between Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, and the United Nations on grain exports across the Black Sea. But with Russia withdrawing from this agreement at the end of this year and the threat of war with the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Beijing's statements are not as encouraging as Mr. Putin would like. In the end, the comprehensive strategic partnership is not very comprehensive. In general, China is playing an ambiguous game, putting Russia at a disadvantage while retaining quite a few good cards for itself. In the face of unilateral sanctions against Russia, it is unlikely to be lifted in the near future and increasing dependence on China. Moscow will be forced to support Beijing's activities in Central Asia. Gave them certain privileges in the Far East. One day this concession will even allow China to push forward and declare its advance into the historic, currently majority Chinese territories of Russia's Far East to protect them. Exactly the same excuse Russia used to invade Ukraine. Although this is less likely to happen, this is not the first time China has used force to realize its excessive territorial claims. The most typical example is in the East Sea. At the same time, although they have the same direction against the United States and the West, while Russia is being exhausted by the war in Ukraine, China is getting stronger day by day. It is no surprise that the time will come when Beijing will unleash its full power and shake the world. At that time, the Kremlin will learn that friendship with the people sitting in Zhongnanhai always comes at a very high price. And just now, all the analysis of military knowledge about the reason China does not want Russia to win against Ukraine. What is your opinion on this issue? Will the war in Ukraine make Russia vulnerable to Beijing's ambitions? Could China one day treat Russia as a vassal state or usurp territory? What will Putin have to do to deal with the mainland's intentions? Please don't hesitate to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Wishing everyone a warm day.